Tonight's going to be a little bit different because I'm not actually showing a project. Hi, Joanne. I won't be sharing a project tonight, but what I'm doing is talking to you about layering on your cards. And I'm going to give you a whole bunch of dimensions, and I will have a PDF for that I will post here after the live. But we'll talk about it first, and then I'll show you a couple of, I'll say, layering tools that I made for myself that can be helpful, and you might want to make them too. And then I'll show you some examples of different kinds of layering on some of my cards. Hi, Pat Drabala, and hi, Mary Lou. So let's see, it's 7:02, so I think we're ready to start. Before we go to that with the layering, I do have two announcements. The first one is that this Friday is the last day that you can order stamp sets, and they're guaranteed to be made. If we don't have them, that they will still make them through the 22nd. After this Friday, May 22nd, all stamp sets will be while supplies last. So if there's something that you really want, if there's a stamp set that you really, really want, I suggest you get it now, order it now by Friday, because after Friday, all the stamp sets, just like everything else on the last chance retiring list, will be while supplies last, okay? The other announcement I have, well, two actually, is that with the COVID-19 Give Back, that PDF that you can purchase for $12, and 100% of the proceeds go to COVID relief efforts, together with Stampin' Up, we have all raised $195,000 to date. So that is really awesome when you consider it's a $12 PDF and everything goes to the organizations. That is amazing, $195,000. And we're just going to keep on keeping on. We're just going to keep going and see how much more we can raise. All right. And my last announcement is has to do with that. Stampin' Up! Has a program called Stampin' Up! Difference Makers, and they do different things throughout each year to raise funds or to give back to communities. Just an example of that would be our COVID-19 Give Back. That's one of the events this year for raising funds and giving back. And another that they're having in conjunction with that is Thursday is Stampin' Up's Day of Service. So Stampin' Up as a company has purchased one of those $12 PDFs for every single employee in any of their facilities. I'm not talking demonstrators, I'm talking their staff, the people that work the picking lines, the people that do the shipping, the ones that clean the buildings, everybody that works in those buildings. They have purchased a PDF for, they have made kits for them, and cut all kinds of designer series paper and basically giving them a kit to make 20 cards along with postage for 5 of those cards in an effort to have people make cards and send them out to those that they think they can make a difference with in these trying times. So to be a part of that, you can be a part of Sarah Douglas, our CEO, making the cards with her family on Thursday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. If you're in Ohio, like I am, that would be 4 p.m. But in addition to that, for my 2 p.m. Facebook Live that day, I will be showing you the 12 by 12 one sheet wonder that Stampin' Up! Has prepared for its employees to participate in the Stampin' Up! Day of Service, making 20 cards each. So definitely tune in on that for that day. If you have not yet purchased the COVID-19 Give Back PDF, you can still do that. It has some both fun and serious sayings that are appropriate for this time right now that we're all going through. And you can find that on my website, marynabe.stampinup.net. And all you have to do is click on the big picture on the shop page that says COVID-19 Give Back. And it will take you right to purchasing that, and it will show you examples, has photos, that sort of thing. So let's get started now talking about layers. Close your eyes for just a moment as I switch my camera. Oops, sorry. I usually have it pulled forward. I forgot about that part of it. Okay, and I was working on projects down here all day as well, so it's kind of you're going to see a mess here, but that's okay. All right, so layering. Oftentimes I have been asked, what size do you cut your layers? And to be honest, when you've been doing card making for so long, it really does become second nature how you cut the cardstock in the various layers and figure that out and that such. No, I'm not using that stamp set today, Shanda, but I was working on samples with that, so that'll be another time. But today we're talking about layers. So basically, there's two sets of layers that I use. The one is always 1/4 inch increments, and the other one has 1/8 inch increments with 1/4 inch in between each size. And the reason I do that is if I use only these measurements, I get a wider border. But if I pair this size cardstock with, say, this size, I can get a very narrow border. And it's also fun to kind of mix and match and combine. You don't necessarily have to start at the size of your card and go layer by layer by layer. I might do this layer and then I might skip down and pull this layer up and then back it on that. So that's what we're going to talk about. And we're not just going to look at this PDF. I will be sharing this PDF here on Stampin' Scrap with Mary Nabe, and I'll also put it on my Stampin' Piece VIP group as a file so that you can download it and keep it for reference near your craft space. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like. Now let me show you what I've done with this. I've created 2 layering tools using those measurements. Like this. You're going to see all my mess today. I was working just before. So on these tools, you're going to see all these measurements. The neutral color ones, the black, the gray, the white, covers, and I did neutrals basic colors because these are the basic and most, probably most popular, most standard measurements are the ones with the 1/4 inch. And then the other set I did in various colors of red, orange, and yellow, and that signifies the 1/8 inch border. So what I've done, and I keep them on these rings, they're very handy, easy to make. So on the back, I actually have the size of a finished card base that would be folded. Our standard card base in the USA is A2, and it measures, folded, it measures 5.5 inches by 4 1/4. And there are two ways you can cut your designer series paper. Either way gives you that same A2 size card, and both give you 2 card bases per 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock. Okay, so I just attached this. What I did is I cut 2 of these, or printed 2 of these. One I just keep handy for quick reference. I can grab it. And I did include this that I cut out and mounted on here. And then to make the others, I just followed along. I followed along with the measurements. Okay. And then when I cut all of my pieces, I cut this down more, each of these, and I cut out the measurements with our classic label punch. So when I go through this, you will see that each of these has the measurement that has been punched out with the classic label punch, 5 1/4 by 4. Okay, and I just go all the way through. The reason I have different colors is so that it's easier to see the different dimensions when you're trying to figure out which layers you want to put together. Okay, so that's all of those. Now, here's an example of a card I made, and it has 1 top layer. Okay, so here's my card base layer. I should put something behind that. Let's see here. How about a pretty piece of Misty Moonlight, or one of our new in colors. Okay, so I have my card base size, my finished card size, and then I know if I cut the next layer like that, that's the border I'm going to have, and you can see that right here. Okay, on my next card example, it has 2 layers on top of the card base. I'm trying to scoot all this over a little bit. That's better. So we have 2 layers on top of this card base. So in addition to that 5 1/4 by 4 inch base, now I've pulled out this one, and I can see exactly how that looks. And I'm like, oh yeah, and of course you can turn it horizontal or vertical, and I can look and think, okay, now that I like the matting, I like the layers there, and that's how I came up with this. And again, as you go through this, it's going to be second nature to you. Now, here is where the other set goes into play. On these 2 cards, you can see on top of the card base, I have 2 layers. And the borders around here are very small. What I've done is taken that first layer, that first standard layer, 5 1/4 by 4 inches, put it on my card front. And then I decided, you know, I don't think I want that much of the card base showing. So, and on this one also, the back piece, the white, is the actual finished folded card size. Okay, just so you know that. But I'm pulling out this one, 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. So I can put these 2 together and then lay them on my card base, my card front, and know if I'm going to like that type of border. Can you see that? I'm going to try to get just a wee bit closer still. Okay. So that helps me decide if that's something I like. Okay. So I'm not using these 2 sets of layering tools separately. It's okay to combine them. Okay, so that's an example of both of these. And look, they even have the same, that's weird. I pulled these out randomly at different times and they both have the very same card layout or card sketch. Now here's another one, pretty similar to those with the small border here. However, I've got a wider border than usual around that card or around the showing on the card base. So my stamped layer is 5 by 3 3/4. So I've actually skipped a layer and now I've got 5 by 3 3/4. And you can see what a difference that makes. This is kind of typical. This is what when we're starting out, probably the most common layer that we use, 5 1/4 by 4. But I'm skipping that layer because I want a bigger border. So I'm using 5 by 3 3/4. And then I decided, you know what, if I'm stamping on crumb cake and my card base is crumb cake, I'm going to need a color between there to help the stamped layer really stand out. So then I can look here and I think, well, the next size up from 5 inches would be my 5 1/2. So I can put this behind here and decide if that's a combination of layers that I like. And I do like that. I think it would work really well with the large sentiment. It would work really well with the large flower and leaves. So I'm going to go with that. Okay. So that's an example. Now this one, believe it or not, the pretty peacock layer, that dark layer, is the same size as the crumb cake layer on this one. So that dark peacock, pretty peacock layer is 5 by 3 3/4. Instead of going a little bit larger with my designer series paper, I should say I went a step smaller on the designer series paper layer. So now I'm looking at 1/8 smaller than that 5 inch, and it's 4 7/8. Okay, and again, you can turn it around. Now I might want to compare. I'm going to go in here and I have 4 3/4 by 3 7/8. So I'm going to have a little larger border of the card front showing, and then I'm going to have that standard size bordering all the way around. That looks pretty nice. But maybe for this particular card, I want to do it like that. Okay. So do you see how I'm mixing and matching all these different ones, trying out different sizes here? Okay, now I have the next two. I believe these are 4 3/4. Yes. So on the next two, and you'll probably recognize a lot of these cards from Facebook Lives or classes and things like that I've done. The watercolor stamped area on both of these are 4 3/4 by 3 1/2 inches. So it's this one. So an even bigger border of the card base showing on this one. I went to the next size above this, which would be 4 7/8. And if you don't want to deal with the fractions, you just pick them up and try them. Okay. And so that's how I came up with the layers for that one. And a lot of times when I'm deciding on the size of the layers, it depends on what I'm stamping, what I'm putting on there. For example, this one has a lot of small, intricate details. It has a lot of fine lines in it. And to me, just having a narrower border of cardstock behind the DSP seemed to be like a good fit. And I like having more of the card base showing because that makes the focal point stand out a little bit more. Okay, now on this one, I chose to go with a narrow border because I wanted a little bit of color to set off the crumb cake that I stamped on, and it's actually embossed, and then the crumb cake card front. But I didn't want so much color that it would take away from this beautiful embossing and the beautiful technique that I've made here. Okay. Now, on this one, I went a step further and decided I want to make more layers with the colors that are in this watercoloring. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start with that basic 5 1/4 by 4 inch layer. And then I already had these two. I watercolored on this and then backed it on the Daffodil Delight. I'm referring to that card, of course. And then I can lay it like that and think, wow, okay, all those layers, that's going to be make a really neat impact on my card here. Okay, so you're kind of getting the idea of how to use these layering tools. Okay, here is one. And by the way, it's really easy to keep the set separate because of the, the neutrals being the basic measurements: 1/4, 1/2, 3/4, and full inch. And then the colors, the reds, the orange, and the yellows, those signify the layers that work on the 1/8 inches. Okay, 1/8, 3/8, 5/8, 7/8. Okay. I'm looking here, can see how this would encourage making layers in different sizes rather than always. Yes, Pat, that's exactly why I like this tool so much, because it helps us practice other layers or choose different layers. It helps us to think outside the box so that we aren't always doing the same set of layers or the same card sketch. But here's one, and I believe this is 4 3/4 with the heather, Highland Heather. Yes, it is. So here you can see I actually skipped 2 of the layers, went to that 3rd because I wanted a nice bold white border showing around. I did the Highland Heather, and then I did the next layer a size 1/4 inch down. But see how that completely changes the look? Picture this card this way, with this being white and the, actually it's Gorgeous Grape, isn't it? Yes, Gorgeous Grape behind it. And now look at it this way. Just has, gives some different kind of interest to the cards that you're making. All right, what else do I have here? Okay, here's 2 examples where I did some layering and I offset them. Instead of putting those layers right in the center of my cards, I offset them to the upper left corner, this one even more so, with the smaller borders. And why did I choose this larger border of the, I believe that's terracotta tile cardstock, versus this one that has a very narrow border of the black? My thinking behind this is such, and you will start doing this, you will start thinking these different ways. On this one, there's so much neutral. There's little pops of color, but it's a very neutral focal point. So I really wanted something bold behind there that would help it stand out. So that's why I put that wider border of the terracotta tile behind it. Now on this one, you can see I've stamped an image and a sentiment. And while this is the focal point, I still wanted people to see these more subtle images clearly. The other reason I chose that very narrow black border is because of the fine detail of the stamps here. They aren't heavy lines, they're small, delicate lines that are used to make the trees and the grass and the horses. Okay, does that make sense? Now, if it had been, maybe larger, a whole big horse head or something here, and, wider sketch lines, bigger sketch lines, thicker sketch lines, I might have chosen to do a larger black border behind that stamped and watered color piece. And here's an example, and this card is outdated. This is actually from last summer, but aren't they fun colors? Oh, yes, they retired. What was it, Berry something? And, I don't remember. But anyways, something about lime and something about berries, but I love that color combination. But look how many layers I have on this card. I have 4 different layers on top of my card front. So to show that, I'm guessing that, and sometimes I have to play around with it a little bit. Nope, that's a little small. It is this one then. Okay, so this is that white layer here. And then the next size down would be this one. So I've got, that doesn't seem right. Oh, no, sorry, it's this. That tiny little border. By the way, I hope you noticed my Ohio State colors, the blacks and the grays and some reds in here. And then I decided on this one, okay, I want to show more of that berry color. No, it's not rich razzleberry. It's Berry Burst. That's what it is. It's a retired in color. Berry Burst and lime something. Lemon lime, or I'm not sure. But anyways, I decided I wanted to have that layer of Berry Burst showing, but I wanted a little more because I really wanted a nice pop of color. So I didn't want to put, like say the next layer down. Nah, I didn't really want to do that. I wanted even more. So I need to find something smaller than my 4 by 3 1/4, or 4 3/4 by 3 1/2. So how about if I try this one? Oh, that works, but I want even more of that border showing. So I'm going to go down again. And now I think, oh, I kind of like that. Is that the same one? Nope. It's one smaller than that even. There we go. It's this one. And then I want a narrow border showing here. So I'm going to go down 1/8. So that takes me to 4 1/4 inches. And again, you don't have to worry about those. If you have this tool, you don't have to worry about those fractions so much. You can just do what I'm doing now, pulling the different sizes. Lemon lime twist. Thank you, Pam. I knew somebody would come up with that. Berry Burst and lemon lime twist. Wasn't that a great combination? They're gone and we miss them, but hey, there are lots of new great colors. So that's an idea. That gives you an idea of how I like to play with the different layers, and how it helps me create cards that are outside the box, that are not always the same layout or the same sketch, or don't always have the same borders and layers going for them. Okay, helps us think outside the box, helps us be a little bit more creative, helps us take our cards to kind of to the next step, the next level. So how many of you think that this would be a useful tool for you in your stamp room or your craft room? Would anybody find this to be of great use to them? By the way, when you put them away, you want to have them in order to start with. And you don't necessarily always have to take them off of the ring either. And I'll show you quickly how I do that. And there is another use for these too. Let me stick them back on the rings. Okay. So I find this to be a helpful tool. Now, somebody asked me, so lots of people think that this would be useful for them. Somebody asked me if I sell them. I have never sold them before. It's not out of the question. I would have to figure up what the cost would be. There's not much cost in materials, but there is a good cost or amount of time in it, a good amount of time. Although it certainly is not hard to make. So I guess if you're interested in purchasing one, let me think about that. Get back with me, and maybe we can discuss it after I have a little time to think about what I would have to charge for making them. But they are very simple to make using this PDF that I'm going to post for you. Because all you have to do is, what I did first was I decided on my color scheme. Again, the basic set I wanted in neutrals. But you don't want to have them all black or all gray or all the same red or the same green or whatever. You need different colors. They don't have to be in rainbow order, anything like that. But you need different colors so that when you're mixing and matching, you're not ending up with a black on top of a black on top of a black, or a real red on top of real red and top of real red. And there are 3 different sizes, but it's hard to see the impact that each of the different layers would play. So that's why you want different colors, okay? I was going to tell you there's one more use for this, and here's a good example. So I have pulled out today, I've been working on samples for Forever Fern. You want to see one? I'm not going to show them to you all. Let's see, which one should I show you? I'm not going to show them all to you just because this is going to be a class later. Okay, but there's one. So today I've been working with the Forever Greenery Suite and the Forever Fern stamp set, and it's got a wonderful collection of dies. Some are out. I've got stuff all over the place. But here's an example. I had a piece, it wasn't that card, was it? No. I had this stamp, and I wanted to take a look at I needed it to be a certain size, a size that would be large enough for my stamp, but not too overwhelming, because I knew this was going to be in the center of my card. So if I had maybe had a big layer and there were things around it, whatever, but a big layer, I thought, oh, that might be a little too much to stamp something so small on something so large. But I could go through here and I think, okay, well that's closer, still a little bit large. How about this gray one? Oh, that's even closer. I kind of like that. And in the end, I don't think it was exactly this size because I was matching it up to, I'm going to end up showing you the whole thing. the gold. We have some gold leaves and things that come on a sheet and are punched out. So I was trying to match it up to the size I needed for that. So, but I can do this. Or I can look at this. Maybe I want to stamp this. And I'm going to put another little stamp on top of it. And then I've got these berries also that I want to stamp on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my largest stamp. And now I think, okay, I'm going to do a vertical or portrait position card. I could do this stamp and stamp the other leaf and stamp the border. So if I cut this in white, this will be a great size for me to stamp on. But what if I'm stamping these and then cutting them out with my dies? Then I won't be confined to the borders of my cardstock. So I might choose to do something a size a little bit smaller where I know the things that I cut out will hang over the edges. Something like this. You can even play with your dies to get a feel for it. And then I might make a pretty bow there or have a little tag with a sentiment on. I might want to go one even smaller and think, okay, this would work well too, because now I can let these hang off even a little bit more from that main piece of cardstock and then go on. So is this making sense? Sometimes I feel like I'm speaking a different language and I don't have the right words to describe all this all the time. But does it make sense to you? So you can use these different tools, layering tools, and the measurements to not just determine the layers you want for your cards, but also to determine the size cardstock that you might need for whatever it is you're stamping or whatever it is you're die cutting, that sort of thing. And then you can play with the other layers. Good, I hope it makes sense. Here's another example. And this is narrow, long and narrow. And I did not use one of these. I just cut a 1-inch strip and I used my handy new lovely label Pick-a-Punch, like 6 punches in one. This might just be my favorite new punch. In fact, it is my favorite new punch. I've been using it a lot. But this would also help me, you know, if you don't have a ruler, a grid handy, something like that, this can also help me see, oh, okay, I like the way this fits on the 3 3/4 by 2.5 inch piece of cardstock. So I know that the strip I use should be at least that long. Okay. Now I might decide this is the perfect size cardstock to stamp on, because now I can add some of those stamped and die cut leaves and berries around it. Okay, so do you get my thinking? Donna, I am here to help you. I don't care if somebody has loads of experience and been doing it for stamping and paper crafting for decades, or if you started this morning. I am always happy to help. So I think that these are especially handy, and the charts are especially handy for all stampers. But like I said, when you get to a point of, you know, making cards so much, a lot of it is second nature. But I still will refer to these because it's fun to mix and match them. It's fun to coordinate them with my different stamp sets or dies, so that I don't start with a whole lot of guesswork. I can try it out right here. Try my layers here before I start cutting into my paper and different things. Okay. As a beginner stamper, Donna, and for any others that are watching and are beginner stampers, I would suggest you just stick with these 1/4 inch layers. okay? Not so much the 1/8 inch ones yet. Focus on these, and you can still mix and match these. You can still, put this 5 1/4 by 4 inch layer onto your card base and then skip down and maybe do these two together, depending on what it is you're stamping or what you want to focus on. Okay? So that's really it I have for you tonight. I will post this as a PDF on Stampin' Scrap with Mary Nabe as soon as we finish here. I will also post it to the Stampin' Peas VIP group, and I could even include it in my next email or newsletter as well, so you'll be able to find it in several different places. Okay, and if you have trouble locating it, just let me know. Any questions about layering, about products? Somebody mentioned new catalogs. They are coming soon. Most of mine, if it's somebody that has customers that have purchased from me in the current catalog period, I am having a catalog sent to you from the Stampin' Up! Company directly. Okay. If you have not made a purchase from me in a while, or you do not have a demonstrator and you're interested in working with me, I'd be glad to send you a catalog. All you have to do is message me your full name and mailing address and email, and I will get that out to you. And if you are a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, or you're on my team as a demonstrator, you probably have your own complimentary catalog by now, but if not, they're still going out, still being shipped. It'll be any day if you don't have it, but I think most people do. Most demonstrators do have theirs by now, and the rest of you should be getting them very soon. They started mailing those out from the company this week, I believe. I hope you found this session helpful, this live session helpful, and has made you a little bit more confident and a little bit more creative by using different layers and changing up the layers of your cards, both in size and what do I want to say? Size of layers, but just mixing and matching and combining wide layers with small, narrow layers, multiple layers, that sort of thing. Take care. Have a good night.